Hi everyone, this is Sai Jain, and today let us discuss about one of the most impacted security vulnerabilities called broken authentication. So, before talking about broken authentication, let us see what authentication is. Authentication is a process to verify a user. It is mostly used in web applications or mobile applications that have a user profile, and it is also used to protect the user data. For authentication purpose, all applications use a combination of username and passwords. Username can be any one of email or user's first name and last name. They can also use a single factor authentication or a biometrics such as a Face ID or a fingerprint scanner. So, broken authentication is nothing but which allows the hackers to gain the access of application. This happens due to poorly implemented authentication process or a poor design decisions. Sometimes we can allow a hacker to gain access of application by simply performing a brute force attack, or if we not implement a proper encryption or hashing mechanism. If we allow users to set a simple passwords such as admin 123, something like that, then it's an easy way for hackers to guess the passwords. Sometimes we leave a hard-coded credentials in the code. This can also lead for hackers to gain access of the application. We can identify broken authentication by properly testing the application, checking uh, if the application is allowing some hackers to perform a brute force attack, or if a session is still being in use even after a user has been logged out of the application. If we also implement a poorly password reset mechanism, then this will allow hackers to reset the actual user's password. Broken authentication has a bigger impact on organizations which host these kind of applications. If a bad actor or hacker gain access to admin credentials, he can easily change or manipulate the application's configuration, which can lead to loss of organization's data. It can also give access to the hacker on which the application is being hosted, which might have important files or important data, which is which represents company or organizations. This due to this proper due to these improper mechanisms, companies can damage their reputation. We can stop this vulnerability by having a proper steps or proper guidelines for developers as well as for the testers to do before going or before taking your application live. So some of them might be, we can limit the user tries for if a user is giving a wrong password or wrong username. We can have simply limited for 3 times. After that, a user account can be logged and he can be asked to contact the administrator for unlocking his account. If a user is not active on a website for a certain amount of time, then application can automatically log the user out and kill the entire session details. After logging out, sometimes the session details are present in the browser. It might be in a cache or in a cookies. if an attacker gets access to this, then he can easily gain access to the user's data. So we need to remove all the session details from the browser even after a successful logout. We can ask users to create a password with a difficult complexity, such as having a special characters, having a uppercase letter, lowercase letter, combination of both, and along with numbers. This will allow hackers, this will not allow hackers to for a easy gain of application or easy guess of user's password. We can also have multi-factor authentication, such as different applications where they provide a passcode to enter to enter after uh, having an successful login, or else we can have a one-time password which can be sent to users mobile or email ID. Along with this, we can also mitigate this by checking the top 10,000 weak passwords for that year, and scanning the entire application's database to see if any user has a weak password, so that asking him to reset his password once and for all. Now, let us look at a real example of a broken authentication. This was of an Western Digital WD My Book of version lesser than 1.0.2. This suffered broken authentication, which led attackers for an remote code execution. This particular bug has an highest impact on the application. The CVSS 3.0 score, when they've calculated it, they got 9.5, which is a rated critical. This bug is due to an hard-coded credentials in the code, which allowed the hackers to access the admin directory without having any sort of proper credentials. Now, this is something from a design perspective implementation. Whenever they have a sort of designed for what should be for admin and what should not be for non-admin users, and they would have talked about it during their design sessions, but when coming to implementation of those designs, developer might accidentally leave an hard-coded password within the code, and due to this, the attackers, they would have enabled the SSH from admin login from admin directory. Now let us look at a proper post request which was sent used. Now if we look at this post request, the entire post request is the proper request that been used by the admins of within the organization or from the third parties. But the only exception case was that the attack those admins and the third party members, they know the credentials or they know the passwords that they have been set, but in this position, the attackers, they don't have any proper credentials, but they have got to know that there's been a uh, hard-coded password within the code, and which is in welcome where O is being replaced with 0, and they have simply like gave request using some sort of tool, maybe it's when Postman, and they whenever they got their prompt for username and password, they have simply used root and the default password, that's welcome. Now this these type of situations are very unacceptable from an SC perspective, because these things should never be hard coded within the code. Not even just again simple the passwords, but for proper configuration standpoint, anything should not be like hard coded within the code. They should have a separate file for having all those variables and all those values. And this is something the developers have to take a look at it, because during implementation they might like leave some values, some hard-coded values within the code accidentally. Now, this is an entire case for a broken authentication. Thank you.